Good evening to all, and a warm welcome to each one of you. I, Dinah Braith, thank all for joining us today, and we hope to deliver a fruitful session. We are here to address a very common concern that plagues not just a few people, but the entire human race. Most of us spend a lot of time inside our own minds, worrying about the future, replaying events of the past, and generally focusing on the parts of our lives that leave us dissatisfied. Negative thoughts can prevent us from enjoying present experiences, distracts us from focusing on what's important, and so drains our energy. But the good news is that with dedicated practice, we can replace these negative thinking patterns with the thoughts that can actually help us. We can think of this as a little challenge. Whenever a negative thought pops up or enters your mind, try to think at least three positive ones. We need to train our brains to flip the script. And I'm sure it will change the story you tell yourself. To shed more light on this topic, we have with us Ms. Avanti Desai, counseling psychologist. She holds a Master of Science degree in counseling psychology and is also associated with our school, Delhi Public School, Bhopal. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you for the warm welcome, ma'am. It is indeed my pleasure to be here today talking about a concern that most definitely has derailed the lives of too many people. When we change our thought patterns to make them more healthy and positive, it can have a huge difference on our day to day happiness and comfort. So it's very important to know whether a certain thought is helping us or working against us. So let me demonstrate the importance of our thoughts by asking our participants a very simple question. Can we have the next slide, please? So the question I want to ask is, what do you think causes us to feel and behave in certain ways? Is it our thoughts or is it the situation that we are in? Take a few moments to think about this question and type your answers. If you think it is the situation, then type S. But if you think it is thoughts, then type T. In the meantime, what do you think, Diana ma'am?
For me, I think it's a very tricky question, ma'am. It could be both. I agree that thoughts are important, but the situation is too. Events like death of a loved one, struggling with financial concerns, coping with family issues, maybe suffering from an illness, all these things can have a very huge impact on our lives. So I think for me, it is a combination of both. But let's see what the participants are saying in the comment section. Yeah, Miss Vinita Vyas also agrees with me. She says both. Alpana Bhatt says both. So we are getting a mixed response, ma'am. Yes, Kushi ma'am is saying situation matters the most. Mayuri ma'am and Rashmi Nakra ma'am says both. So I think the majority of them are saying that it is both the situation as well as the thoughts.
Right. Can we have the next slide, please? Now, these are surely interesting answers. Most of us believe that it is the situation which has a direct effect on how we feel and act. But you will be surprised to know that research says otherwise. Research says that it is not the situation, rather, it is what we think about the situation. You see, the situation only gives rise to a certain thought in your mind. If that thought is positive, then you will feel and act positively. But if that thought is negative, then you will feel and act negatively. Whether we are undergoing physical, mental, or emotional stress, we all respond differently to it. Whether it is the death of a loved one, dealing with work stress, or handling a difficult child, all of us respond differently to them. So, why does this difference in our reaction exist?
Very rightly said, ma'am. If so many of us have gone through the same life events, then why do we all respond differently to it? Something to ponder upon and reflect about.
Exactly. For example, think about loss. It could be the loss of a job, the loss of a friendship, death of a loved one, or even a breakup. Why is it that one person is able to move on in just 3 months, whereas the other takes an entire year? The situation is the same, so why does this difference exist? The answer lies in our thought process. It's all about how you choose to look at it. Will you cry because it's over, or will you smile because it happened? So, our reactions are based on our thoughts about what happens to us. So, it's never the situation, rather, what we think about the situation that determines how we feel and behave. And because thoughts come and go in a flash of seconds, it may be difficult for us to identify them. And so, what we end up doing is blatantly blame the situation for all our troubles. But with careful introspection, you will always find an underlying thought behind every feeling and action.
Well, that explains a lot of things. It helps me understand the importance of our thoughts in a new light. And strangely enough, it also makes me feel more in control of myself. A lot of people feel scared about the future because they don't know how exactly it is going to play out. But your explanation helps us to understand that no matter what happens, we can still be in control by changing the way we think about those circumstances. Now, let me quote an example over here, like looking at the current situation of COVID 19. We would have never dreamt of such a crisis, but we still have managed to find a way through it and coped really well. Even during the lockdown, instead of focusing on the negatives, we tried to make the most of what we have by counting our blessings and doing something really productive. We held on to the light at the end of the tunnel. We united with our family, spent time developing new hobbies like baking, gardening, and so on. So it was our thought process that has led us in a positive direction. So when we focus on the good side, we will surely see the brightness. And if we look at the bad side, we will see the darkness. Some people feel stuck in the negative feelings and feel that they will never come out of it. So, ma'am, can you please share what are the kinds of thoughts going on in their minds to make them feel this way?
Absolutely. Can we have the next slide? Great. Now, in fact, certain kinds of thoughts will always result in specific kinds of feelings. Now, let me break it down for you. As you can see on your screen, first of all, anger will be felt when we think about how our own rights have been violated or how we have been treated unfairly. For example, try to imagine a situation where somebody cuts you in line, or let's say that somebody takes your parking spot, or when somebody earns more money than you unethically. It's very easy to feel treated unfairly in these situations, and so you will experience anger. Next, we have the feeling of sadness or depression. This feeling always arises due to thoughts about loss. Now, it could be the loss of actual things, or it could be the loss of people or your self worth. Self worth means that you value and have faith in yourself. So, when you lose your self worth, you stop valuing yourself. So, when you focus too much on the loss, you will undoubtedly feel empty and upset. And when you have demeaning thoughts about yourself, or whenever you think too negatively about yourself, the resulting feeling will always be sadness. So, in the same way, thoughts about future threats will always cause you anxiety and fear. When you anticipate problems in the future, or whenever you create imaginary negative scenarios in your mind, you will feel anxious or scared. But that's not all. Sometimes we have thoughts about violation of other people's rights. For example, when we think about how we may have intentionally or unintentionally hurt somebody, we end up feeling guilty. And lastly, we experience the feeling of embarrassment when we think about losing our honor and dignity. So every time you feel any of these negative emotions, just take a few seconds to step back and pay attention to your thoughts. Are you able to identify any of what we spoke about?
Great, ma'am. This was really insightful. We can have multiple thoughts about a situation, both positive as well as negative. But we must be very careful about which one we choose to believe. The choice is always ours, as it is going to have a direct effect on our emotional well being. So we need to make the correct choices. As you said, we choose to focus on what we have lost, we will always remain sad. But if we choose to focus on what we still have, we can change that feeling of sadness to gratitude and contentment. Isn't it correct, ma'am?
Absolutely correct. And to demonstrate something, let's move on to the next slide. You see, sometimes we might experience multiple negative feelings at the same time. It's 100% possible for us to feel angry, sad, and guilty at the same time. This usually happens when we are grieving for someone. This shows that three types of negative thoughts are operating together. For example, focusing too much on the loss will cause feelings of sadness. Feeling deprived of the bond we shared with that person causes anger. Why? Because remember that deprivation of that bond is being seen as a violation of our right. And feeling responsible for the death of that person causes guilt. Why? Because this reflects a violation of their right to live.
Yes, these examples make things quite clear. And even I'm sure our viewers will also agree to the same. It is very interesting to know this connection between our thoughts and our feelings. But nevertheless, they are connected. One thing we can say for sure is that we must choose our thoughts very carefully and introspect every once in a while to make identifying automatic thoughts easier.
Yes, the reason we have these automatic negative thoughts is because that is what you have picked up unconsciously from others or learned from past experiences. We are constantly imbibing and learning from our environment by experiencing and observing what others say and do. What we pick up is not always healthy, and this process usually happens unconsciously. Automatic negative thoughts are a result of repetition. So, to change them, we must first identify them and then consciously come up with an alternate healthy thought, which we must repeat to ourselves as often as we can until it becomes automatic. So, this is a process of unlearning to learn something new. How we think, how we feel, and how we behave, it all interacts together. But it is specifically our thoughts that determine our feelings and our behavior. Now, let me demonstrate this using the ABC model.
The ABC model, that sounds really interesting, ma'am. So, ma'am, could you please shed some more light on what exactly the model is?
Yes, can we have the next slide? Okay. Now, the ABC model was given by Albert Ellis, an American psychologist and psychotherapist. Now, the name of this model refers to the components of the model. Very simple. The letter A stands for adversity or activating event. It is basically your situation, something that has occurred in your environment. Let's say that You met your friend at a party, but she did not greet you. So that becomes your activating event. In another example, let's say that your friend cancels your lunch plans at the last minute. So this is again your activating event. These are all situations which can trigger negative, irrational thoughts, causing negative.
I think there's some connectivity issues at Avanti ma'am's end. So Avanti ma'am was explaining regarding the ABC model. There are certain situations in our life which resembles or which correlates with the model. The letter A stands for adversity or activating event. Yeah, pardon me. Yes, Avanti ma'am has joined.
Yes, sir. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So as I was saying, these are all situations which can trigger negative, irrational thoughts, causing negative emotions such as anger, sadness, anxiety, fear, guilt, etc. Now, when you have inaccurate beliefs about a situation, your response may not be effective or healthy. But if the activating event leads to a positive and a rational thought, then you will experience positive emotions. Then next we have the letter B, which stands for beliefs about the event. And it involves both obvious and underlying thoughts about the situation, yourself, and the others. The letter C stands for consequences, which includes your behavioral or emotional response, meaning how you act and how you feel. Now, most people assume that it is the activating event, the letter A, which directly causes consequences or C. But that is not the case, that is false. What we don't realize is that the activating event only triggers the belief. A only leads to B. That's it. It is then the belief which causes our emotional and behavioral consequences. Negative feelings usually reflect negative thoughts. And we all commit errors in our thought process, and it's okay because nobody is perfect. But using this ABC model can help you identify these inaccurate beliefs and lets you consider whether they are true.
That's really an interesting model, ma'am. Let's take an example for our participants and we can all try to identify what the A, B, and C are.
Yes, definitely. Can we have the next slide?
So I'll read out the example for our participants. Mary has been consciously living a healthy lifestyle for more than 2 months. She finds out that she wasn't invited to a party at school, but a friend Janice was invited. Mary thinks to herself, Janice always gets invited to things. I never do. I'm such a loser. Nobody likes me. She gets very sad, doesn't go out jogging, and eats a whole box of candy instead.
Great. Thank you for reading that out, ma'am.
Welcome, ma'am.
Now, participants, it's your turn. What do you think is the activating event in this situation? What is A in this example? Type your responses. Okay, Jaspreet is saying she's focusing on the feeling. Priya is saying not getting invited. Okay. All right, can we have the next slide? Let's look at the correct answer. Can we have the A part of the slide, please? Yes, the correct answer is not getting invited to the party to which her friend was invited. Remember, A is the situation, the activating event, the trigger in your environment. Great, guys. Now let's look at the B. What is B in this example? Please hold on. Please don't reveal the answer. Okay, we already have it anyway. So the belief in this example is, I am such a loser. Nobody likes me, right? This is what Mary is thinking to herself. So whatever you say to yourself in your mind, in your thought, that becomes your belief about the situation and yourself. Now, what do you think is the C in this situation? Remember, there are two parts of consequences. One is emotional and second is behavioral. So what is the emotional consequence? What feeling is getting triggered as a result of this belief Mary has? Type in the chat box or in the comments. Emotional consequences, stress on the feeling, how you're feeling as a result of this thought. So the correct answer is Mary feels sad, ignored, yes. She feels even depressed, right? And she loses her motivation to go jogging. Now, what is the behavioral consequence? As a result of feeling this way, how does she act? How does she respond? Type your responses. All those who are giving correct answers, keep it up. I'm very happy to see that. And those of you who are taking a while to get a hang of this, it's okay. Keep trying, and I'm sure that you will get there.
No, ma'am, our Facebook audience is also giving correct responses. So our audience, they all are attentive listeners and they are getting the hang of this.
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, Rashmi Desai is saying damaging own health. Okay. So let's look at the correct answer. The correct answer is she eats a whole box of candy instead, despite her focus on healthier living. So I hope that this model really clarified things for you. And those of you who got your answers correct, keep it up.
Yeah. Now, ma'am, let's look at how another person, Anna, reacts to the same situation.
Ma'am, can we have the next slide? Yes,
so I'll read out her reaction. She says that that's disappointing, but I actually don't know Nancy very well. Janice knows her far better. That's probably why I wasn't invited. Maybe next time I'll be invited. She goes for a run, stops at a video store to rent a comedy CD, and calls a friend to come and watch it.
Yes. Now here we see that the activating event remains the same, but Anna's belief is different. Thinking that she wasn't invited because I actually don't know Nancy very well helps Anna let go of the initial feelings of disappointment, do things that help her feel more positive about herself, and enjoy the rest of the day, right? So here we can see a vast difference in her emotional and behavioral consequences just with a slight change in the thought process.
Wow, this exercise really broke things down and made them quite simple to understand. I hope the audience will agree with me. I never knew that paying attention to our feelings is so important and how it can signal that something needs to be changed about our thought process. A lot of people keep blaming the situation and victimizing themselves. But now we know that we need not feel trapped by our circumstances. We no longer need to continue to feel sad, angry, disappointed, or guilty, because we do have the power of changing our feelings by changing our thought process. And when we feel emotionally better, I'm sure that we will be able to make better decisions and behave in a healthy way. So again, we need to train our brain consistently and persistently.
Yes, you summarized it really well, Diana ma'am.
Thank
And
you.
I'm glad that you found the ABC model quite helpful. There are many errors that we commit in our thought process, and they are known as cognitive distortions. In simple words, they are just faulty and unrealistic ways of looking at the world. You know, our thoughts can sometimes trick us. They are not always realistic or accurate. But in psychology, these irrational thoughts have been classified into 10 to 15 types. And one example is black and white thinking, where you perceive things to be either all good or all bad. You see things in terms of extremes. Now, this type of thinking can disrupt your relationships and even hurt your mental health. Similarly, we also have the cognitive distortion of personalization, in which you feel like everything is your fault and you tend to take things too personally. Now, Diana ma'am, how about you share a few more cognitive distortions with our participants? Ma'am, we can have the next slide here.
Surely, ma'am. As you can see the slide, like there are different terminologies which relate to cognitive distortion. Like as humans, we have likely fallen for a few cognitive distortions at one time or the other. Let's take a quick look at the table of these cognitive distortions here. People with all or nothing thinking distortion look at life in black and white categories. Either they are looking it as a success or they are looking it as a failure, either good or bad. There is no in between. Now, if we look at personalization, it speaks about people who take things personally and eventually they start blaming themselves. Mind reading, on the other hand, is very close to making assumptions. Um, in the season, we start coming to conclusions by only assuming what others might be thinking about us. And these assumptions, they lead to the negative thinking patterns eventually. Thoughts that include should or must statements, for example, I should have done this in a better way, or I must perform exceptionally better to stand out. This type of thinking may induce feelings of guilt or shame. While all of us will agree that we all jump to conclusions from time to time, like for some of us, it is a set of pattern of behavior, which in turn is the negative thinking pattern, often tied to anxiety or panic disorders. This may lead to catastrophizing, which means expecting worst case scenarios, which may or may not even happen. Discounting the positive means we don't really acknowledge the good things that are happening around us. This attitude eventually takes the joy out of our lives. So, friends, it is always important to pat our backs, even for small and petty things, and always keep ourselves charged up and motivated. Now, if you look at overgeneralization, it is a way of thinking where you apply one experience to all experiences, like you, as in you generalize the entire event, including those in the future. For example, if you once gave a poor speech at an event, you may think to yourself, I always will not be able to deliver a good speech. Another example that I would like to share is in Olympics. The dark-skinned people have won many gold medals. So we tend to think in this manner that all dark-skinned people are good athletes. So overgeneralization may be in a positive way or a negative manner. Blaming. Blaming others for our failures, and one fails to own the responsibility, which then leads to a negative thinking process, or it leads to negative thinking patterns like resentment, anger, or even hatred for the person whom you are blaming. And if it is communicate to others, even the person being blamed often feels defensive or is hurt. So, friends, these were the cognitive distortions that lead to a set negative thinking pattern. So, ma'am, once we have identified these, how can we challenge them?
Now, an important tool to challenge negative thinking is to identify between fact and opinion. We need to pay careful attention to our thoughts and label them as facts or opinions. Can we have the next slide? A thought becomes a fact when it is rational, when there is evidence to support it, when it is logical, when it is arguable, and when it can't be disputed, right? A thought becomes an opinion when it is based on personal view, when it is arguable, and when it is driven by emotion. Now, at stressful times, we are often driven by our emotions and opinions. And this leads to impulsive acts, impulsive behavior, and very unhelpful long term consequences. So, if our thought is an opinion, then we can look at the facts. What do we know for sure about the situation and focus just on that? If our thought is a fact, then great, there's nothing to change there. Then it helps us make good choices about the best thing to do.
Yeah, so for example, ma'am, I would like to share an instance which I think we all must have faced it. Like someone we know walked past us without saying hello. Like we might think they didn't want to talk to me because they don't like me, and so on, or it goes on and on. So sometimes we hold on to this and harbor negativity towards that person. We don't realize that they could have just been lost in their thoughts about something, or maybe weren't feeling well. So we are so busy feeling angry and hurt that we forget that we are doing the same thing to that person. So what if they did not approach, or we could always go and say hi to them? We could take that initiative. So we must try and stay focused on that fact, which is that the person walked past, anything else is opinion. So our own personal interpretation of that event. The reality is that they just didn't see us. So we must hold on to our thoughts, which are facts, and let go of the thoughts, which are negative opinions.
Yes, that's a great example, and I'm sure that most of us must have experienced it at some time or the other. It's personally happened to me also. So I'm sure that the participants will be able to relate to that. Now, let's do a quick exercise to differentiate between facts and opinions. Next slide, please. Okay, great. I would like all of you to type words that describe this picture on your screen. Write whatever comes to your mind. Don't think much. Kavya Shukla saying funny. Then we have somebody saying joker. Dynamam, please read out the responses from FB.
Yeah, we are getting response like from Swati ma'am is saying smile.
Okay.
Mm.
Here, Jaspreet is saying funny, energetic, and colorful. Okay.
Alpana ma'am is saying jovial.
Okay.
Vinita ma'am is saying colorful.
Rashmi Desai is saying maybe happy on face, but deep down maybe sad. Okay. That's a great interpretation. Anybody else? Okay. Moving to the next slide. Now, what we will do is sort these adjectives into facts and opinions. What we can see at the first go what is quite evident in the picture is a fact. So we can see that the person in the photo is wearing the costume of a clown, but do we know for sure whether he works as a clown? No. He could be an actor dressed as a clown for a movie shooting. So the fact is that he is wearing the costume of a clown. But when we say that he is a clown, that is an opinion, because that is your personal view. Similarly, we can see that the person has a smile on his face. But is he really feeling happy? Like Rashmi Desai said, he could be feeling sad deep down, right? We don't know. So that is an opinion, right? So let's look at all the facts. We have colorful red head, painted face, clown costume, and a smile on face. Whereas opinions can be funny, scary, happy, likes children, famous, and disgusting.
Yeah, that was a really insightful exercise, ma'am. Let's do another one. This time with reference to our thoughts, and we will label them as fact or opinion. So I'm going to read out 12 sentences, and the audience will have to type into the chat box or in the comment box whether you think they are fact or opinion. Avanti ma'am, ready?
Absolutely. Let's move to the next slide.
Okay, the first sentence is, or the statement is, chocolate is the best flavor of ice cream.
Come on, participants, tell us, is it a fact or an opinion? Okay, Kavya is saying opinion. Priya is saying opinion, okay. Salma is saying opinion. Jaspreet is shouting opinion, okay. Rashmi Desai is again saying opinion. Paras Bhatt is again saying opinion. Great, all of you have given the correct answer. I'm so happy to see this.
Even my
Right?
Facebook comments are flooded with the opinions only. So everybody's
So now, why is this an opinion? Because chocolate is not the best flavor for everyone, and so it's your perspective.
Yes. The second statement, yeah. I am a bad person, which I am definitely not.
I guess that's your hint, whatever
Yeah.
Diana ma'am said.
Yeah.
Opinion. Okay. Jaspreet is really getting excited. Do we have anyone saying fact? Great. Correct answer. It is opinion. You may consider yourself to be a bad person, but somebody else might not. So this difference in perspective itself shows that it is an opinion. Moving to the third one.
Yeah. Sam told me that she didn't like what I said about her.
Great. Again, correct responses. The answer is, sorry, this is, no.
No. They are getting carried away.
Yes, the correct answer is fact. Why? Because when the person has verbally told Sam that she didn't like it, it is a fact and not imagination. Now, whether Sam was lying or not, we don't know.
Yes,
But the fact is that Sam told me that she didn't like what I said about her.
Yeah, I was about to say that. But instead it's a fact.
Yes, absolutely. Moving to the fourth one.
Nothing ever goes right. N number of times we may have used this statement.
Yes, especially when you're feeling frustrated.
Yeah.
Frustrated is a negative feeling. So there must be some negative thought operating. So what does that make it? Fact or opinion? The answer is opinion. Why? Because there are plenty of times when things did go right. It's just that you don't give them enough weightage. So at that situation, you are focused highly on the things that are going wrong, but it's just your perspective. It is not a fact, right? So nothing ever goes right is your opinion. Fifth one,
This will be a disaster.
Priya is saying opinion. Chintan sir is saying opinion, opinion again. Majority are sticking with opinion this time.
Yeah. Even the Facebook comments, they are saying opinion.
Tara's also saying opinion. Yes, all of you are correct. The future has not even unfolded. So how do we know for sure it's going to be a disaster? It sounds funny when I say it out loud. So this is an opinion and not a fact. Sixth one,
I failed the test.
okay, majority are saying fact.
Yeah.
Correct. Because marks on your answer sheet don't lie, right? So it's a fact. Then seventh,
This statement, I am overweight. This really bothers us, all of us, especially the
so
ladies,
many people.
the women.
This is going to be an interesting one. Let's see what the participants say. I am enjoying this. Most of them are saying opinions.
Yeah, we wished like it could have been opinion, but nevertheless,
The answer is it's a fact, guys. Why? Because the weighing scale never lies. And so what it says is a fact. Now, a lot of people will think that I'm not beautiful because I'm overweight. So that is an opinion. Being overweight does not determine your beauty. That's just your negative thought. You need to change the yardstick by which you measure your beauty and self worth. But the fact remains the same that you are overweight. So I hope that clarifies it. Moving to the eighth one.
yes, the eighth one says, I'm selfish.
Okay, we are getting mixed responses here. Some are saying fact, some are saying opinion. What about Facebook Live, ma'am?
Some are saying fact, some are saying opinion. Even here, we have mixed responses. But can I answer this question, ma'am?
Yes, please.
It's an opinion. That is what I feel. Because it is my own perspective, my own personal view. Like the other person would not be feeling the same about me. So, is it opinion? Is it correct?
Absolutely. Yes, you are correct. The answer is opinion. You can always reframe this negative opinion to something like, it's okay to look after myself first. That's a much more healthier thought to have, isn't it? Moving to the ninth one.
There's something wrong with me.
Jaspreet is saying opinion. Again, mixed responses. Excuse me. All right, so this is an opinion because this is your personal view, right? There's nothing wrong with you, believe me. Even if I don't know you, I can say this for sure. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are just fine the way you are. And the next one.
The next one is, no one will ever love me.
These are very common thoughts that, all of us struggle with on a daily basis. Okay, Chintan sir is saying it's a fact. What about others? Jaspreet is saying it's an opinion. Salma saying it's an opinion.
Even our Facebook audience is going with opinion.
Ajitesh sir is saying opinion. Well, at this moment, I have to say that I really want to thank the participants for being so participative and interactive. It makes me really happy. It makes us feel like the work we are doing is worthwhile. So thank you for that and your quick responses. The answer is opinion. If you're ready to receive it, you will see love everywhere. You will feel it everywhere. So this is why it's an opinion. You cannot predict the future and believe that it is a fact. That is another cognitive distortion which is operating at the mental level. Now, the second last one.
I am ugly.
Your majority are saying it's an opinion. Yes, all of you are right. It's an opinion because many people do find you beautiful. So it's a matter of perspective. And the last one.
The last statement is I didn't lend my friend money when they asked.
Okay, we have some people saying it's a fact, which is indeed the correct answer. Whether you did lend or did not lend is a fact and it's not going to change. So that brings us to the end of this exercise.
This was indeed a great exercise, ma'am. From this, we learned that much of the time we respond to our thought processes as if they reflect facts about the world, whereas they more often represent opinions or assumptions. So, being able to tell the difference between facts and opinions is a critical skill. So, balanced thinking, I think, comes from the process of challenging our thinking, our own thinking, analyzing what is that we think we know and why it is that we know it.
Yes, can we have the next slide? Yes, so you got that right, Diana ma'am. And not just differentiating between fact and opinion, we can also challenge our negative thoughts by asking ourselves some self-reflective questions. So let's take a few seconds to go through them. Next slide. So some questions that you can ask yourself are, do I have proof to support my thought? Will this matter a year later? What can I control in this situation? So I'll give you a few seconds, go through the list. Diana ma'am, anything you'd like to say?
Yes, ma'am. Sometimes I feel that we do ask ourselves these questions, but we are not ready to accept the answer or change our story instead. So, what can we do about that?
It's a struggle that many people face. In their hearts, they know what they should be believing, but they just choose to turn a blind eye towards those facts. The question to ask yourself is, how is holding on to this negative thought helping you? Let's take loss, for example. After a breakup, a lot of people continue hoping that their partner will return, even when they know it's not going to happen. The same thing happens when you lose your job, right? In feeling so upset, you don't even try for another one in a very long time. When couples divorce, they keep hoping that the partner will return. So you must try to find, why is it so important for you that they return? Are you afraid to function independently? Or is your mind tricking you into believing that you will never find love again? Such confrontation with yourself is important. What need is their presence trying to fulfill, which cannot be fulfilled in their absence? So once you have identified that, try to find ways in which you can satisfy your emotional needs on your own through other methods. Negative thinking does not occur only after a bad situation. It can happen in the smallest of situations, for example, getting stuck in traffic. It's natural to feel frustrated, right? Or let's say that when you're parenting your children, some tips are surely going to arise, and it's easy to have thoughts like, am I a bad mother or a bad father? So you need to ask yourself, where is this thought coming from? Where did you pick up the concept of a good mother and a bad mother? If something isn't working out, it only requires practice or a different solution. It's not a label or a personality, and we tend to forget that. So, getting to the root cause, the underlying problem, is very important.
Yeah, so it all comes down to being careful about which thoughts you are feeding, like feeding your thoughts, and which thoughts you choose to strongly believe in. Because what you believe is what you get. So if you go on thinking negatively and think on those negative lines, it is ought to happen. So if you feel that you won't ever find love again, unconsciously you are training your mind not to receive love. So even when there is lots of it around you, you will never ever go, I'm going to receive it. But even in the absence of a partner, if you believe that you are worthy of love, you will see it in all your other relationships. Isn't it, ma'am?
Very rightly said, ma'am. Can we have the next slide? And as we continue to challenge our negative thoughts, we must remember why it is important. Why should we know about these facts and opinions? How exactly is it going to transform our lives? Because when we stay focused on the facts, it ensures that we stay grounded in reality and don't get lost in our imaginary scenarios. It helps us build a solution focused mindset, which means that instead of being fixated on the problem, we try to actively work and find practical solutions to come out of them. Positive thinking helps us to make better decisions that supports our emotional well-being. It helps us enjoy this beautiful life to the fullest and appreciate the good things about it. Rather than cribbing about what isn't working out, we try to focus on what we can make better for ourselves. It makes you feel more in control of your own life. And believe me, life is too short to be wasted upon. When you think positively, you start seeing opportunities even in adversity. That's the magic.
Yes, life is too short to be wasted upon. I completely agree, ma'am. When we think realistically or focus on the bright side of situations, we feel very content and happy. So we hope that our participants feel inspired. We hope that you feel more confident now about challenging your negative thoughts and enjoyed the exercises we did today. And thank you for being such a wonderful and interactive audience. Thank you, Avanti ma'am, for the wonderful session and sharing your insights into such an important topic. I'm sure that the tips you shared with us will be beneficial to each and every one of us. Thank you for being with us today. Having said this, I would like to conclude today's session by saying that only you have the power to change your life, nobody else. So it's now or never. And the secret of that lies in your thoughts. So let us all accept the challenge to train our brain. The statement with which we started this session, train our brain. to replace one negative thought with 3 positive thoughts. On that note, we take your leave for the day. Until next time, goodbye. Stay safe and take good care of yourself and your family. Thank you all once again.